In an era of gilded facades and glittering balls, where every smile at a soiree could conceal a dagger, one name gleamed like a golden monogram stitched into a silk glove: Alva Vanderbilt. To the outside world, she appeared to be a queen of her age, intelligent, wealthy, and undeniably influential. But beneath the pearls and lace lay a darker story, a tale not just of a woman who lived through the Gilded Age, but of one who embodied it, challenged it, and left scars on its polished surface. Alva was born in 1853 in the lush heat of Alabama, into a family that understood the value of social standing, even if they hadn't yet unlocked the gates to true elite society. As a child, she spent her summers on the shores of Rhode Island, surrounded by the sons and daughters of old money. It was there she befriended a young beauty named Consuelo Iznaga, a girl from the world Alva longed to belong to. But childhood, however golden, ended swiftly. At just 17, Alva lost her mother, and with her, much of the family fortune. The security of wealth vanished, and morning walks gave way to anxious thoughts about the future. Even more devastating was the growing realization that she lacked what secured most young women a place in society: beauty. Her face was deemed too angular, her chin too assertive, her smile too bold for a lady of refinement. In a world where women were allowed to play with only two cards, beauty and money, Alva seemed to sit at the table empty-handed. But those who dismissed her underestimated the most vital thing. She was brilliant and terrifyingly ambitious. Her salvation came in the form of that very childhood friend, Consuelo, who eventually introduced Alva to William Kissam Vanderbilt, grandson of the railroad titan Cornelius Vanderbilt. William was rich, idle, and easily impressed, and Alva knew exactly how to present herself, not as a beauty, but as a woman of intelligence, taste, and presence. The charm worked. In 1875, she entered the Vanderbilt dynasty, first through marriage and soon through motherhood, giving birth to 3 children, including a daughter named, fittingly, Consuelo. But even inside this fairy tale castle, quite literally, as William gifted her a grand chateau on Fifth Avenue, tensions began to simmer. The Vanderbilts had everything but one thing: respect. At the time, New York's high society was dominated by a tightly knit circle of old money families, descendants of America's earliest aristocracy. They viewed the Vanderbilts, new industrial billionaires who had risen on steel, oil, and railroads, as vulgar arrivistas. To them, wealth without pedigree was nothing more than polished labor. The most immovable gatekeeper was Caroline Astor, the reigning queen of Manhattan's elite. She made no effort to hide her contempt. Her refusal to pay Alva the traditional social call was a pointed insult, an indication that Alva was not considered suitable for polite society. For Alva, who had always found a way to get what she wanted, it was not just an insult. It was a declaration of war, and she answered it. With calculated poise, Alva orchestrated what would later be called the Ball of the Century. She sent out more than 1,300 invitations, chose a date just after Lent to avoid competition, and poured every ounce of strategic brilliance into the event. Her boldest move, however, was silent. Caroline Astor's daughter was not invited. After all, how could one extend hospitality to those who refused to acknowledge you? Alva framed the slight with impeccable etiquette, turning a social snub into a masterstroke. Desperate to maintain her daughter's social standing, Caroline Astor finally paid the long-awaited visit. The high priestess of New York society came, on her own accord, to the woman she had once deemed unworthy. That single act opened the gilded doors of high society to the Vanderbilts. In time, Mrs. Astor would admit, the time has come for the Vanderbilts. Alva had won. But peace was never her story. Within the family, a colder war was already taking shape. William's sister, Alice, aloof, aristocratic, and so refined she reportedly refused to speak to her own drivers, set her sights on outshining Alva. On the very night of the legendary ball, the one Alva had intended to own completely, Alice stole the spotlight. And so began a new rivalry, quieter, but crueler than all before. Even greater trials lay ahead. A crumbling marriage, a scandalous divorce that shocked the entire nation, and a harrowing truth that society, at the time, dared not even whisper. But that is another chapter altogether. And like everything in the life of Alva Vanderbilt, it would be written in steel, ambition, and the rustle of New York's most exquisite gowns. In the dying light of March 26, 1883, the streets outside the Vanderbilt mansion in New York shimmered with anticipation. Carriages clattered, necks craned, and a restless murmur spread through the crowd. This wasn't just another society ball. It was the ball, the most extravagant spectacle the Gilded Age had yet seen. And at the heart of it all stood Alva Vanderbilt, radiant and commanding in a Venetian noblewoman's costume, complete with live birds perched delicately in her hair for the photographer's delight. This was supposed to be her moment, her triumph. Alva had battled tooth and nail to climb the impossible ladder of New York's elite, and this opulent masquerade was her declaration. I belong here. She had finally outmaneuvered Caroline Astor, the undisputed queen of society, by creating an event so grand even the old guard couldn't ignore it. But fate has a cruel sense of timing. Alva's own sister-in-law, Alice, arrived in a costume that stole the show, a dazzling interpretation of electric light, the symbol of the future. The press was captivated. Alva's victory lap turned into a silent humiliation. And though the two women maintained a thin veneer of civility, the rivalry between them would simmer quietly, dangerously, for years to come. Behind Alva's steel-spined elegance was a woman driven by something deeper than ambition, an aching need to control, to mold the world to her will. It wasn't just society she sought to conquer. It was her family too. Motherhood twisted in her hands like a weapon. Her daughter, Consuelo, became the canvas for her iron-fisted vision. When the child slouched, Alva strapped a steel rod to her spine to force perfect posture. When she disobeyed, Alva lashed out, sometimes with nothing more than words, other times with a riding crop. The message was always the same: obey or suffer. Consuelo's childhood was not her own. Her mother chose every dress, every word, every thought. When Consuelo once dared to protest her clothing, Alva snapped, "I do the thinking. You do as you're told." And Consuelo did. For years, Alva had everything the world said should satisfy a woman. Mansions rising like palaces along Fifth Avenue, yachts bobbing in glimmering harbors, one even bore her name, and servants who bowed to her every whim. But still, it wasn't enough. Alva's hunger ran deeper. What she wanted now wasn't more diamonds or marble staircases. She wanted a title. And her daughter, beautiful, delicate, with an aristocratic swan-like grace that made her look born to wear a tiara, was the key. Consuelo's face, to Alva, was not her child's. It was a golden ticket to nobility. The Vanderbilts were rich, yes, but not royal. Not yet. Alva saw an opening in the English aristocracy, where money was dwindling but titles still dazzled. And so, like a chess master, she moved her pieces into place. She orchestrated a chance meeting between Consuelo and Charles Spencer Churchill, the 9th Duke of Marlborough.